Why leaders must experience AI friction first. Most leaders are trying to remove friction from AI adoption. They shouldn't. They should experience it first. Because if leadership doesn't personally feel the friction, they will misdiagnose it. And when you misdiagnose friction, you design the wrong solution. And the wrong solution scales confusion. You mandate usage without clarity. You standardize tools without standards. You push adoption without understanding resistance. And suddenly AI doesn't feel empowering. It feels forced. That's not an AI failure. That's a leadership shortcut. Here's what usually happens. A company decides to roll out AI. They pick a tool, they buy licenses, they schedule a training session, then leadership says, let's get everyone using it. But leadership hasn't used it deeply themselves. They haven't wrestled with prompting. They haven't hit the limitations. They haven't experienced hallucinations. They haven't struggled to integrate it into real workflows. So when employees push back, leadership assumes resistance. When adoption stalls, leadership assumes culture. When output is inconsistent, leadership assumes training. But sometimes the friction isn't cultural, it's structural. And you only see structural friction when you personally hit it. If a leader has never tried to use AI to draft a board-level memo, analyze a messy spreadsheet, refine a hiring rubric, rewrite a vendor contract, summarize a 30-page operational report, then they don't actually understand where the friction lives. They understand the concept of AI, not the experience of AI. And there's a difference. Real AI integration is not about inspiration. It's about workflow collision. AI collides with data quality, process inconsistency, undefined standards, scattered documentation, and vague expectations. And when AI hits weak systems, it exposes them. It exposes inconsistent naming conventions. It exposes undocumented processes. It exposes decisions that live only in someone's head. It exposes meetings that replace documentation. It exposes work that depends on memory instead of structure. And that exposure can feel uncomfortable because it's not just technical, it's organizational. That exposure feels like friction, but it's diagnostic. If leadership never experiences that friction personally, they treat the symptoms instead of the system. Here's why this matters. When leaders personally experiment deeply with AI, three things happen. First, they develop realistic expectations. They see what AI does well. They see what it struggles with. They learn how much clarity it requires. And they stop overpromising. Second, they build better standards. They understand what a good prompt actually looks like. They understand the importance of structured inputs. They understand where guardrails are necessary. That knowledge shapes policy. Third, they gain credibility. When an employee says, "This doesn't work in our workflow," a leader who has felt the friction can respond intelligently. They can say, "I ran into that too. Here's how we adjust." That's leadership. There's a dangerous pattern happening right now. Some executives are delegating AI exploration entirely. They assign it to IT or marketing or an innovation committee, and they distance themselves from the discomfort. But AI is not a side initiative, and operational leverage cannot be delegated blindly. If you delegate exploration without personal exposure, you create strategy without experience, and strategy without experience becomes theory. Theory doesn't survive contact with friction. Leadership does. It is operational leverage, and operational leverage cannot be understood secondhand. Imagine a CEO who never logs into the CRM, or a CFO who never reviews financial statements directly, or an operations leader who never walks the floor. We would call that disengaged leadership. But somehow, with AI, we think strategy can exist without experience. It can't, because friction reveals design flaws, and design flaws are leadership territory. When you personally experience AI friction, you begin asking better questions. Why is our data inconsistent? Why are our SOPs vague? Why are our expectations undefined? Why is this process so dependent on tribal knowledge? AI doesn't create those weaknesses. It exposes them. And leaders must see that exposure firsthand. Otherwise, they'll mistake clarity for complexity. They'll assume the tool is flawed when the system is. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If AI feels chaotic inside your company, there's a good chance it's reflecting pre-existing chaos. AI is a mirror, and most organizations don't enjoy what that mirror reflects. AI reflects clarity, or the lack of it. It reflects process strength, or fragility. It reflects leadership alignment, or ambiguity. If you haven't personally stood in front of that mirror, you won't recognize what your team is reacting to, and leaders who avoid looking in that mirror will struggle to lead through what it reveals. So before you mandate AI adoption, before you standardize tools, before you set company-wide expectations, spend time in the friction, draft real documents, analyze real data, refine real workflows, push it until it breaks, feel where it strains, understand where it shines, then build your standards, because leaders who experience friction first design smarter systems, and smarter systems don't just adopt technology, they integrate it. They refine around it. They build policy from lived experience. That's the difference between executive enthusiasm and executive leadership. And smarter systems scale. AI integration is not about enthusiasm. It's about informed authority. And informed authority only comes from experience.